Hi, and welcome to the Wednesday Word. This is a story about Grandma's Mixer by Diana Iden. Have you ever had one of those, I can't take this anymore moments? Well, Marcy was at the end of her rope, frustrated by a recent move, until she experienced a little miracle in the kitchen. Here's her story. We just downsized our home. As grateful as I was to have a roof over our heads, I couldn't help but feel blue. Our old house was beautiful and huge. Our new home, half the size and cramped. We'd had to give away or toss a lot of our stuff, but there were still boxes everywhere, from the family room to the garage. The day after the move, while the children were in school, I tackled more boxes. By the afternoon, I'd made real progress. The furniture was unpacked, the photos were hanging on the walls, but it just didn't feel like home. Maybe I could change that. I checked the pantry and saw that I had enough ingredients to bake chocolate chip cookies just like my grandma used to make whenever I needed cheering up. Wouldn't that be a nice surprise for the kids? When they got home from school, there'd be a fresh batch of cookies for them on the kitchen counter. I put on my favorite apron, measured out the brown sugar and butter, and got to work. One by one, I added eggs to the mixer. And then all of a sudden, pop! What? The beater stopped spinning. My mixer was broken. Really? Really? I felt like screaming. It was just a kitchen appliance, but it just felt like the last straw. What more did I have to give up? But then I thought, what would my grandma do? She'd lived through the Great Depression and had lost everything. Even in the midst of hardship, she'd kept her family together. She used whatever she had to get by, whether she was canning produce from her garden or using scraps of material for quilt squares. Grandma wouldn't quit. She'd find another way. Inspired, I ran to the garage and rummaged through the remaining boxes. I found it! I pulled out Grandma's old white mixer, the one she'd passed on to me. She purchased it back in the 50s, and it was, well, ancient. I'd marked the box it was in as fragile, but the movers hadn't paid much attention to that. They dropped it anyway. And as if that wasn't bad enough, they left it outside, along with a bunch of other belongings, during a rainstorm. I wondered if it still worked. Looking at the fabric cord, I wasn't sure I wanted to find out. I set the mixer on the kitchen counter and carefully plugged it in. I turned the switch on. Nothing. Ugh, I should have tossed it in the dumpster. Ruined and beyond repair. Just like my life these days. Come on, try again, a small voice said. So I flicked the switch back on, and to my amazement, the beater slowly churned to life. I added the rest of the ingredients and shook my head in disbelief. It worked! 2 hours later, the kids opened the door. Cookies, they said. For the first time, our new house felt like home. It even smelled like home, just like Grandma's house always did. Maybe this wasn't as grand as our old one. But then again, maybe home wasn't where we lived. It was where we shared the sweet moments, the small miracles of every day, like a broken mixer that came back to life when I needed comfort most. Such a simple story, wasn't it? It reminds me of the scripture from Philippians where Paul talks about being content no matter what his circumstance. It is also a reminder that God gives us those small, everyday miracles. And he gives us family and friends to share those sweet moments with. I read a quote that said, when you're at the end of your rope, you're at the beginning of God's doorstep. So hang on, because he's got you. Have a beautiful week.